Good evening, everyone. I'd like to bring the February 18th, 2025 Poquoson School Board meeting to order. Mr. Lamwagi, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence, please?
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for a moment of silence. Please be seated. Having celebrated President's Day yesterday, we are all reminded of the many great men who served our nation throughout the almost 250 years of its existence. Most notably, perhaps, was the first, George Washington. He is remembered not just for his unifying leadership of the country, but also the morals that he held it to. In the words of Washington, "Character is the bedrock of success, for it shapes our actions, earns us respect, and inspires others to greatness." Thank you.
Mr. Lamwagi is going to go ahead and give his comments because he has to leave early tonight for show choir.
Here are the reports from the schools. From the primary school, Poquoson Primary School is thoroughly enjoying our One School, One Book project this month. Together, staff and students are reading Fenway and the Bone Thieves. Each week, families are reading chapters at home and staff are reading chapters aloud as mystery readers on the morning show. There are trivia questions posted, and we have had many amazing participation by students in school and by families through Parent Square. The culminating event will be a service project to benefit Animal Aid Society and a wildlife rehabilitation center. More news will come at the end of this week. Stay tuned. Poquoson Primary School has had a busy month celebrating the end of second quarter and the 100th day of school with an aloha party and time with Mrs. Deaver and a parachute game. We also invited our second graders to bring their favorite seniors to a night of games to wrap up our American Heart Challenge. Finally, last Friday, we had the PHS STEM Club visit first grade for a lesson and celebrated Valentine's Day with cards and candy exchanges. We also had a visit from Betty Bear, sponsored by our PTO, who brought each child a candygram, as well as distributing those purchased by families. The PTO also stocked the teacher lounge with much appreciated goodies. Thank you to the PEF for sponsoring Mrs. Johnson's spring instructional grant. She purchased additional read-aloud texts and manipulatives to support learning in her kindergarten classroom. As well, we would like to thank PHS for continuing to send over students for Fun Fridays at arrival time. Our children and staff love this. From the elementary school, Poquoson Elementary School has been working hard to wrap up mid-year assessments, and teachers are using this data to make adjustments to their instructional plans. Our teachers have been collaborating in literacy and math planning weekly, and seeing the results of our new HMH reading curriculum will increase in student reading scores. Our fifth grade teachers are working with Poquoson Middle School to begin working on rising sixth grade course recommendations. Our fifth grade parents will receive more information soon regarding rising sixth grade parent information sessions. We are grateful to the support of PEF grants, as several PES teachers received the winter grants for items to include recess/PE equipment for Miss Barnes, whiteboard topped tables for our math intervention team, a read-aloud story app for Mrs. Griffin, and additional library resources for our library. Our students loved receiving Valentine candygrams from our PES PTO, as Betty the Kindness Bear passed out over 900 candygrams to our students and staff on Valentine's Day. Our PTO also hosted a family bingo night, filling our gym with family fun and laughter. Our SCA planned dress-up spirit days for Kindness Week, and our K-Kids Club, sponsored by Mrs. Stegerwald, passed out Valentine's gifts to staff and Poquoson firefighters to share kindness in our school community. PES is also grateful for our counselor, Mrs. Davis, and SRO Curry and SSO Johnson, with counselor and SRO Spirit Appreciation Days, occurring in February. We appreciate the ongoing support of Poquoson Elementary School. From the middle school, February is a very busy month at Poquoson Middle School. Kindness grows at PMS. On Friday, students helped build our Tree of Kindness on the wall outside of the auditoria by decorating hearts with thoughtful messages, examples of kind acts, and reasons why it is important to show kindness towards others. Battle of the Classes was also in full force last week. Students participated in theme days, competing in minute-to-minute games at lunch, had coin wars, and ultimately battled it out in the gym on Thursday evening. Sportsmanship among the teams was fantastic as they performed in front of a packed gym filled with family members, students, and staff. Ellie Stevens led us off with an amazing national anthem. Mr. Lawson and the PMS Pep Band provided top-notch quality performances throughout the competition, and members of PHS Evolution performed for us at halftime. Congratulations to the 8th grade on winning the coveted trophy. A huge thank you is extended to all who helped make this memorable event possible. PMS had 18 students selected for district band, the most of all 25 middle schools who participated, and PMS chorus had 22 students selected for district chorus. PMS Spelling Bee took place after school on February 13th. We are proud of all 55 participants and extend a huge congratulations to the PMS Spelling Bee champion, Amelia Argranosi, who will now move on to compete with the regional spelling bee. Huge congratulations is extended to our February Golden Bull Students of the Month, Nathan Greco, 6th grade, Lauren Jones, 7th grade, and Lily Kleindinst, 8th grade. From the high school, Poquoson High School has had an exciting and eventful month. As winter sports come to a close, wrestling captured the regional championship and is headed to states this weekend, while the swimming team finished as regional runner-up and will also compete at states. Girls basketball and track are gearing up for regionals. Beyond athletics, band and chorus members participated in district-level events, and the STEM Club brought enrichment activities to Poquoson Primary School last week. We also celebrated National School Counseling Week, recognizing the dedication and hard work of our counselors. Congratulations to Ms. Baker on receiving a grant from the PEF. Thank you to the PEF for supporting our teachers. And to top it all off, the cast of Bye Bye Birdie was just announced, and we're looking forward to an exciting spring. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are you going to go ahead and head on out?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Carroll, do we have any additions and/or modifications to the agenda?
No, we do not.
For recognitions, Ms. Purdy?
Chair Burbidge, members of the board, community members, and colleagues, thank you for joining us this evening. We have a few recognitions amongst us, the first of which is our Poquoson Exchange Club Senior of the Month. The February Senior of the Month is a dedicated student, talented athlete, and a young man who understands the importance of giving back. This student has always challenged himself academically with numerous honors, advanced placement, and dual enrollment courses, and his devotion to his studies has earned him a 4.44 grade point average. He's a member of National Honor Society, Social Studies Honor Society, Music Honor Society, Math Honor Society, and German Honor Society. I'm not sure if there's any more than that. Outside of the classroom, this student has been a part of the Student Council Association since his freshman year, helping to organize various school events. He's been a member of the Excel Club since his junior year, starting as secretary, and then made his way to president his senior year. He has been a member of the varsity indoor and cross-country track team since his sophomore year, and is an integral member of the team. He's also been part of the varsity tennis team since his freshman year. Somehow, in his spare time, he even finds time to work at the local golf course as a groundskeeper, maintaining the upkeep of the courses. It is my pleasure to announce Samuel Nelson as this month's Student of the Month. He is a devoted student with aspirations who set ambitious goals for himself and who is unafraid of a challenge. He has demonstrated strong leadership and time management skills and is highly regarded by both staff and parents and students. And also, we would like to, oh no, I went too far. Here, Samuel. Thank you for catching that. Also, he just very excitedly made a decision for post-secondary. He got accepted to a lot of wonderful institutions, but has selected West Point. So please congratulate us with Samuel Nelson. At this time, I would like to invite the Poquoson Art League up front as they have a very generous gift to bestow to our schools.
Good evening. I'm Kay Bolden, representing the Poquoson Art League, funding of $800 to each school to support our art teachers. This money can help supplement materials and resources that will enhance our students' creativity and learning experiences. The Art League feels that investing and promoting the arts in our schools enhances the diversity and uniqueness of our community. Thank you. So I have 4 checks here, and the first one is for the primary school. I would like to present.
Ms. Paige Parker here,
Pardon?
Ms. Paige Parker, she represents our elementary schools.
Okay. Well, good. Do you want the elementary one too?
Sure, why
Okay. Okay. Yeah. The next one is the middle school. Thank you. And the high school.
Thank you. That's
You're
really
welcome.
generous.
Thank you, Mrs. Bolden. Please thank the Poquoson Arts League for our gratitude for your support within our schools. Thank you very much.
The Art League is really impressed, especially with the scholarship students, on how diversified and how well-rounded they are. The applications we get is really, the school is doing a good job.
Thank you for that compliment. I would tend to agree. We see their artwork displayed all over the schools, and they're doing wonderful things. It's very impressive. Thank you. Well, my surprise was ruined as we recognize a board clerk appreciation. Tonight is my honor to recognize 2 individuals whose dedication to behind-the-scenes work ensure the smooth operation of our school board. As we celebrate the VSBA School Board Clerk Appreciation Week, we want to express our sincere gratitude to Carol, Clerk of the Board, and Ashley I, Deputy Clerk of the Board, for their unwavering commitment to Poquoson schools. Carol plays a vital role in maintaining the official records of the board, coordinating meetings and communications, and ensuring that all documents are handled with precision and professionalism. Ashley, in her role as Deputy Clerk, provides invaluable support, stepping in whenever needed to ensure continuity and accuracy in board operations. We are truly grateful for their hard work, and we thank them for their contributions to Poquoson schools. At this time, if you could please come forward. And February is School Board Appreciation Month, and we are grateful for the dedicated members of our Poquoson City School Board. They work tirelessly to support our students, staff, and community. Their leadership, vision, and commitment to excellence also shape the future of our schools and ensure that every student has the opportunity to succeed. I often compare our board members as the bridge between our school community and the overall community at large. It can be a difficult task as they champion both groups of stakeholders, and we appreciate their service. Thank you for making a difference every day. At this time, we have plaques with their certificate of appreciation that we're going to hand out and do a photo. No, you're going to be handed one, Dr. Burbage. Appreciate your willingness to serve.
She's going to be able to get, I think,
What
from
I
the
would like to
class.
do, if you wouldn't mind standing and
Just
holding
stand.
your plaque up where you are.
And we have some goodies when we take our break that you guys can share. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you very much. That concludes the recognitions for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Purdy. Yes, now we're going to move on to presentations and reports for the instructional update. Ms. Side?
Right. Good evening, members of the school board, superintendent, community members, and colleagues. This evening, I will be presenting an overview of key components of the budget as related to our instructional needs. For the instructional portion of the budget, we are highlighting key additions, increases, and decreases that directly support the continued growth and success of both our students and staff. These initiatives align with and advance the goals outlined in our strategic plan, particularly in the areas of recruiting, retaining, and growing of our staff, as well as enhancing students' access to opportunities to engage in meaningful curriculum work and real-world applications. Research consistently shows that the most significant factor in student achievement is having a highly qualified teacher in the classroom. Ensuring that our educators are well-supported, well-trained, and equipped with the necessary resources is essential to student success. However, we are facing a national teacher shortage, with increasing competition at both the local and national levels to attract and retain top talent. As divisions across the country struggle to fill positions, it's more critical than ever to invest in instructional excellence. These strategic investments not only strengthen our ability to recruit and retain exceptional educators, but also ensure that our students receive high-quality instruction they need to thrive. In addition, we know that the best predictor of college success is not just getting into college, but being prepared for it. Research shows that the most significant indicator of student success in higher education is their exposure to rigorous coursework in high school. By expanding access to advanced coursework such as dual enrollment and advanced placement courses and testing, we are equipping students with the skills, knowledge, and confidence they need to excel beyond graduation. These investments reinforce our commitment to prepare every student for success in college, careers, and life. In the proposed budget for the 25-26 school year, we are recommending an allocation of $20,000 to support teachers in completing the necessary training, testing, or credentialing required for Virginia licensure. With the continued increase in career switchers and educators teaching outside of their licensure areas to fill critical roles, these funds are essential for recruiting, growing, and retaining highly qualified teachers and staff. By investing in professional development and licensure support, we are committing to the long-term success of both our educators and students. And of course, this budget item is related to our current strategic plan, Focus Area 3, Objective 2, develop and implement a program to retain high-quality staff. Objective 3, enhance division-wide systems that promote shared accountability, high expectations, and continuous growth for all employees. Areas of critical need will be identified annually to prioritize the use of these funds. For example, we are currently focusing on supporting teachers in obtaining their English Learner EL endorsement, as we are seeing an increase in students qualifying for ESL services. Additionally, as we expand our dual enrollment program, we have teachers within our division who are nearing full qualifications to teach these courses. Ensuring our educators are certified to teach dual enrollment will lead to savings in the long term, as we can reduce the costs associated with non-PCPS staff providing the instruction for these courses. Our goal is to grow our own educators and provide the ongoing support needed to meet the evolving needs of our students. Next, we have professional development funds, which has always been a line item on the budget. For the 25-26 school year, you will see an increased request of $20,300. Similar to the funds above for credentialing teachers, this increase of professional development funds would be used to address critical areas of need to support teachers. Examples include continued professional development for the new ELA standards, especially in the area of writing to ensure continuity of instruction across all grade levels. Support with the new math standards to ensure the use of hands-on materials and real-world applications. In addition, we have those new social studies and science standards coming as well. With the addition of teachers from non-traditional backgrounds, we want to increase our support for areas such as classroom management, classroom engagement strategies, and effective instructional strategies. These funds will be used to bring in experts, allow staff to travel to attend professional development conferences in the area, and even funds for substitute teachers to allow for collaborative planning and training during the workday. This budget item is related to our current strategic plan, Focus Area 1, Objective 1, assess, enhance, and expand meaningful programs with curriculum that consist of real-world applications, as well as Objective 2, develop and adopt a collection of highly qualified instructional practices with a multidisciplinary focus, as well as Focus Area 3, Objective 2, development and implement a program to retain high-quality staff, enhance division-wide systems that promote shared accountability, high expectation, and continuous growth for all employees. The next line item that you see is our learning management system, Canvas. Currently, Canvas is being paid for by the VDOE. The VDOE began paying for Canvas in 2020 as part of the state's response to the pandemic. As of now, the VDOE has not publicly announced plans to continue funding for Canvas. For that reason, we are including the cost of a division license in our budget for the 25-26 school year, which is approximately $45,000. The use of these funds would be reevaluated for programs and other strategic goals should we not need to pay for Canvas. And of course, as we know, we go into virtual learning tomorrow. Canvas is our main platform for that. The use of this learning management system is related to Focus Area 1, Objective 3 of our current strategic plan. Moving on to New Horizons, which provides educational opportunities for our students, including specialized placements for special education students, such as the Center for Autism, career and technical training and credentialing through the Career and Technical Education Center, and advanced coursework through the Governor's School for Science and Technology. For the 25-26 school year, our overall expense for New Horizons will decrease by about $122,000, reflecting a 12.8% reduction from the 24-25 school year. This decrease is primarily due to a 26.2% reduction in cost associated with students placed in New Horizons special education programs. We will see a small increase in the CTE and Governor's School expenses with a 5% and a 9.6% increase respectively. However, we still will maintain that reduction of cost by $122,000. If we want to look at these numbers in terms of students, we have an average of 45.3 students per year utilizing the CTE programs. For the Governor's School, we have an average of 13.2 students per year with 62 credits earned, and these averages are calculated over a 3-year time span. For the special education programs, most of our cost savings is coming from a reduction in the use of the ED program, going from 3 slots to 2 slots. We've also noted an increase in special education purchased services. This category includes the contracted services for occupational therapists, physical therapists, and speech pathology assistants. Contracting these services is essential to provide the resources required to support students with disabilities to be able to access the general education environment. As special education is a program driven by student needs, costs and services fluctuate each year. The ability to contract these essential services allows us to remain responsive to the individual needs of our students as outlined in their IEPs. As part of our ongoing commitment to expanding rigorous coursework, the division has prioritized ensuring that all students have the opportunity to participate in advanced placement testing without financial barriers. While AP testing has been available in our division for some time, the cost of the exams were not previously covered. Beginning in the 24-25 school year, we began funding AP exams, and we remain committed to continuing this initiative in the 25-26 school year. We anticipate the cost of AP testing will be approximately $40,000 per school year. This investment directly supports our strategic plan, Focus Area 1, Objective 1, which emphasizes assessing, enhancing, and expanding meaningful programs with curricula that incorporates real-world applications for students. Next, you will note an increase of about $10,000 in the area of alternative education, specifically virtual education. Here in PCPS, students who may not be able to attend the traditional school setting may take courses using Virtual Virginia, Edmentum, or even with our partners at WHRO. These courses are not just for those not attending the traditional setting, but they're also offered to traditional students to offer more opportunities to take classes not offered by our PCPS staff, essentially increasing our course offerings. An example of this would be the American Sign Language class, which is offered through Virtual Virginia. Again, this relates to our Focus Area 1, Objective 1 of our current strategic plan. And finally, you will see a line item for $50,000 for dual enrollment courses. This number was determined using the cost per credit hour and the projected number of students who might enroll in these courses during the current or any given school year. Students will have the flexibility to take individual courses or work toward an associate degree or its equivalent, depending on their interest and academic qualifications. PCPS remains committed to providing this valuable opportunity, allowing students to earn college credits while still in high school. Investing in dual enrollment not only supports academic advancement, but also ensures our division remains competitive with the surrounding school districts. This budget item is related to our strategic plan, Focus Area 1, Objective 1. So, that was a lot, and we will get into it in more detail, but just to sum it up, the proposed budget for the 25-26 school year reflects our unwavering commitment to providing high-quality educational opportunities that support both the professional growth of our staff and academic success of our students. At a time of a national teacher shortage and increasing competition for highly qualified educators, it is critical that we remain competitive with surrounding divisions in recruiting, retaining, and developing top talent. By investing in teacher credentialing, professional development, and instructional programs like dual enrollment, we are not only strengthening our workforce, but also ensuring that our students have access to the best possible learning experiences. Each item in this budget is strategically aligned with our goals to meet the evolving needs of our school community, addressing both the immediate priorities and laying the foundation for the long-term success. I look forward to working together as we implement these plans and fostering an environment where all educators and students can thrive. Any questions? That's a loaded question. I'm sure there's lots.
I just had one question on the New Horizons decrease. You're saying that there was 3 special education teachers and they're going down to 2?
It's not teachers, it's slots for students, and specifically in the ED program, we went from 3 student slots available to 2 due to our 3-year average, like the reduced need of sending
We
students.
can only send 2 now instead of 3? Our students?
Well, it's a needs-based program, so if an IEP team decides that a student needs those services, we have slots available to send them. But the reduction, that's the most expensive program at New Horizons significantly. I think it's about a 4 students to 1 adult ratio there. So when we see a decrease of, I think, 3 kids in that programming, it generates savings to us in that year's budget. But there's space available if needed. If an IEB team decides
that
tomorrow to recommend New Horizons ED program, we would have slots available.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ide. Okay, for our operations update, Mr. Roberts.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Mr. Tillett, staff, and community members. I'll be providing some operations updates and definitely discussing some proposed budget items. Starting off, I don't know if you remember, past few months I've been talking about a review from VDOE on our food services. It's called the FPAR, or Federal Program Administrative Review. Our rep came down and met with us for a day and chose the middle school to kind of watch the breakfast and lunch programs to see how they were performed, evaluate it with her rubric. That staff received glowing remarks as far as their customer service, the way the food was presented, how clean the space was. So a huge kudos to that middle school cafeteria team. We also have off-site reviews that's kind of been ongoing. I want to give a special thanks to Keely Sullivan. She kind of was the rock for this, to send all that documentation to the third-party company that kind of reviews all this stuff. And through the whole process, overall, we had a very successful review. We got complimented on many things. And we did have a few minor findings, which basically we just have to do a corrective action. Some examples of this: they pull random menus from October 2023. There was 1 week where we were short on a grain. That's a meal component with the fruits, vegetables, meats or alternatives, and the milk are the categories. And on our grains, we were just a little shy of the mark. So very easy things to fix, nothing with any kind of monetary damages to it. And then our wellness policy, they just wanted to see some things documented. We are doing these things, so we may be coming to you in the following months just to improve that policy to make sure that we've got everything exactly what we're doing and reflect it for their needs. So overall, great review. Oh, and I also want to thank Tina Wolf. That's our cafeteria manager for Airmark. She was amazing during the process as well. Couldn't do it without her. All right, on to safety. We're going to be ordering those weapon detection systems with some funding, and this will give us that set we've been discussing in our safety committee team that will be traveling around the division to kind of train each building to see where we can use it best, even for events. So we'll get that rolling as soon as those arrive with the training from the company. It's a pretty neat training they put you through. It's kind of they bring different items to try to get you to see the capabilities of the system. It can go as high as the TSA to low as we want it, so it does have a range. We've already started our tabletop discussions that I mentioned back in December with each building for the various lockdown situations that could occur in each building to add that layer of comfort if it happens like during a passing period or during lunch, something to that effect. And then next month we'll be talking about the active shooting, off campus and reunification that we would go through with our safety crisis plan. So those are the tabletops for this month and next. Bus evacs, we just finished those up, which should be the last round for the year. Those were successful. And during Spark Day, we had the SROs and SSO meet, gained a lot of great knowledge just to see from those discussions and what they're seeing, both inside and outside the schools. And definitely it was a great perspective here at SSOs on how that's been going, since it's kind of still a new program, especially for the primary school that just got theirs this year. So very productive meeting with those two groups. All right, so talking about transportation, I know this has kind of been a very concern that we've had through the year. I kind of just want to lay some things out. If you've heard them before, if not, this will be the things that I kind of want you to focus in on to kind of explain where we are, where we're trying to go. In the next slide, we'll show you some proposals to try to recruit and retain those bus drivers. So currently we have 12 full-time trained drivers. At the beginning of the year we had 10. We went to 11, kind of lost one to part-time. We got 2 new ones across the year, so now we're up to 12 full-time trained drivers. The newest one started a week and a half ago, and he will be doing the Route 35 runs permanently. So that's something that I know a lot of parents have been asking for, and I've been asking for patience. Well, hopefully the patience is paid off, because now we do have a dedicated driver to that run. He is getting acclimated pretty quickly with the run, so hopefully each run he does, he'll improve on those times and be more consistent. I did want to point out that in August of 2023, we started out with 16 full-time drivers. It's been easy for me to stand up here and say, hey, we're short drivers, but, I wanted to kind of provide you a little bit of numbers for that statement. So, even compared to the beginning of last school year, we're still down those 4 drivers we once had. So that kind of explains a little bit of the issues or problems that we would have, like when people have to call out for sickness, which unfortunately, those bus drivers are exposed just like the teachers and everyone else, and maybe in a worse way because it's a more confined space, to all the germs and everything that those little ones bring in. So we've had bouts, as recently as a couple of weeks ago where it was very trying to cover all our in-city runs. But we go the extra mile. Joey and staff does a great job, and the bus drivers are always chiming in on mornings when we say, hey, we're down a driver. They're like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. So very, very tight-knit, hard-working group. It's never for lack of effort from our bus drivers. They're fantastic. But yeah, we've been able to ensure to cover every run except one day. One day we did have to make the decision to not transport our regional program because we had to protect our 4 buildings runs in-house or in the city. Other than that one day, we've always figured it out and covered even the regional runs, which is phenomenal with the light staff some days that we have. I know Richmond schools or city schools, I think, recently had to move to a virtual day because 70 drivers called out sick, and they had to move to virtual because they literally could not transport them. So there's 70 out, our 4 or 5 out, probably pretty comparable with what the logistics kind of shake out to be. So kudos to the drivers to sticking that one out. Continuing on the GPS installation, I have those items. We're going to be actively putting those in. March 5th is our training for our bus drivers and aides. It's one of 2 annual days that we get with them to do trainings, and that will be primarily based on the GPS software, the Wayfinder apps that they have in the bus that shows pictures of students and allows that unit to connect to the GPS unit we're putting in to produce the parent app that we're trying to work towards to give to the parents. We're going to roll this out in kind of phases. We'll train the bus drivers, kind of pilot it in our own system, just us viewing it. Then we'll probably release it to a bus or 2 just to go live and see, if there's anything that we still need to work out. But we're on a great track right now as far as everything's aligning and having the equipment on time and being able to have that March 5th day to start training. So that should expedite things. Little rundown about current driver incentives. We do still pay the attendance stipend. It's based on attendance, of course, 95% attendance, and we do that from each semester, so they have a possibility of getting that stipend twice a year if their attendance is above that 95%. We still pay the all employee bonus to them. I think over the past 3 years, that's equated to 23% raises. If this budget is approved, it's another 3% on top of that. So after the end of this year, it'll be 26%, which is pretty phenomenal. We still pay the driver's run rate if they have to do a combined run and/or what we call a double run, which means that they, go to their run, they go back to the same school, pick up the run that's missing, and then take them back. So either if we're combining them on one bus and/or a double run, we're still paying them that extra run rate at their pay rate. And we do run rates over hourly because we're so small. Our run, if we have everybody fully staffed in there that day, the average run's about 40 minutes compared to an hour. So, if we paid per hour, that would be kind of probably cheating them in the long run. So we elect to continue to do that run rate. That's about it for this slide. So next slide, continue the theme here, to recruit, retain, and grow. We did the MAG study, that's the Management Advisory Group for the compensation study. And the reason why we chose to do this is we knew we were kind of behind on things like pay. And that's what they identify, those discrepancies, and give us a full report. And the proposal for the increase, which we'll talk about later and definitely with Mrs. Spence's presentation. So again, the proposed 3% rate, I think we've all heard that over and over. We're also proposing to change the way the pay scale sheet format looks, and you have to hang with me here. Historically, because when we post, like for example, teachers, you go online and you see, the years of service and that big column that you can expect. If you're a new teacher coming in or a teacher at 3 years, you find your number and you think, oh, that's it. Well, some people forget to look at the bottom because we also pay for things like master's degrees or advanced certificates and things of that nature. Well, they're not automatically built into that chart. You have to go down, read the fine print, be able to do some math based on wherever you would come in on our scale. Most divisions around us, they use just a huge chart and they break it down to bachelor's plus 18, master's with a certificate, and a doctorate column. We're proposing to move to that. I think this is a good time because we're trying to increase all the pay across the board. And that could be used as a recruiting tool so they don't have to be kind of misled by thinking, oh, maybe that's the only pay I'm getting, and they missed the bottom part for the $2,700 they would get for a master's. So combining those kind of makes it easier for someone shopping online to see what they would actually get paid. I would hate to think, we missed a potential employee because they looked at a bachelor base pay and they were sitting there with a doctorate, for the same year. So that's a proposal we'll have. And then we do want to prioritize our bus drivers for the recruitment and retainment. So a little breakdown of what we're proposing to do. Additional $3 per run, and that's drivers and aides. That would be one proposal. Raise the minimum run rate from the $13.59 that it currently is up to a minimum of $18.32. That puts us in the ballgame definitely. If when I go to these director meetings for transportation, I'm hearing some way larger numbers than 13 something, right? If we equated this to an hourly rate, we would be around $23 an hour. So, that puts us definitely in the ballgame with recruiting highly qualified bus drivers and to retain those that have been with us and deserve that pay bump to stay with us. So very, very happy if this gets approved for those drivers. We're also trying to increase the field trip run rates by $4 an hour. Currently, we're at $16.50. That would make it $20.50. Also, the long distance trips, I think we're right now at 18 something. Increase that by $3.50. It equates about $22 per those runs. We're still going to pay for, I've labeled it sleep time. A lot of divisions do not pay when they're, resting, but we do that as kind of an incentive to take our trips. And I think that's at $15 an hour for their rest time, which is 8 hours that they get. And drivers continue to be paid their run rates for the combined runs and things of that nature. We're not getting rid of anything like that. And then we also decided to increase the run rate pay for summer school. I think it was 27 something before, and we've increased that, or proposed to increase that to $30.75 to incentivize those drivers to come back, our good drivers, and pick up some more money during the summer months for the summer academy. So definitely a priority on these bus drivers. Like I said before, school systems have had to go to virtual, close school because of the driver shortages and illnesses. So I think that's a very important thing for us to focus on. All right, I just want to give you a little bit of an update. I've been going to one career fair so far to try to recruit some potential candidates for any position. And the one I attended back on the 7th of February was the ODUs. Fortunately, I don't know if it was just the timing or what, it had a low participation rate. However, I talked to 4 people, interviewed 2 people, and 1 came in on as a sub the very next day. So I liked it. That was a high yield for me, maybe not everybody else, but I thought that we were, for what was there, we gained something from it. And this particular individual, I was very excited, and I was like, yeah, you need to call me ASAP. So, and we got them in. So that one worked. The CNU one will have to be rescheduled. It was supposed to be this week, and Radford was supposed to be Friday, so they're all rescheduling those, and JMU is later in the month on the 27th. So I'm going to try to hit all these. If we find this is not yielding much, we'll go a different direction, but for right now, I'm going to the ones that have education programs and have people ready and willing. So we'll be there with our applications. And then to kind of, in my section here, just a budget update for the operations. These are all proposed increases, for this new budget. The first bullet up there for all employees' compensation, that 1.2 mil over, is from that MAG study suggestions. You should have received that, and Ms. Spence will definitely go more detail there. I extracted the bus drivers because, I give you a lot of numbers about them to let you know this 88,000 is a part of that 1.2, but that is how much that would cost us, everything I just went over for just the bus drivers alone. So it's an additional 88,000, a little over. The 3% increase for all employees would be a little over $500,000. And then the $1,000 bonus that we give, you can see the 300,000 number there. That's what that would cost. Okay. Maintenance budget's getting a little bit more particular. The contracted services, that'd be like service masters. That's just their increase to account for inflation. That's pretty standard that we're seeing with contracts. Vehicle maintenance, building repair and maintenance cost. We're trying to budget to get things back on cycles. For instance, we had to replace a door the other day. Security is a huge thing. We want to make sure all our doors are functional, so we want to kind of add more to those budgets to give us the ability, because, that door was not cheap. That's something that I learned fast, quick, in a hurry. So we're trying to move those maintenance things on more of a schedule to catch these old buildings up, and then put things on CIP that are more than just the little quick fixes that, are costly. So paying really big attention to those things. And then utilities, I'm sure, even you as a private citizen, you've seen the inflation and the things go up. That's what we're trying to increase that a little over $8,000 for there. The last bullet here, athletics. This is a blessing and a curse. When your students do well in these events, it costs more money because you've got to transport them. The officials to referee all these events become much more. And then we have a 5-year rotation on our uniforms that we, follow to the T, and, that's a line on them every year. So that will be a little over $33,000 of an increase, just because we're having to continue to bill out that athletic budget each year towards the end, and that's because, we're successful. We have a lot of travel, a lot of rings, and everything else to purchase. So not a bad thing, but definitely something we're trying to budget for. All right, and that's all I have for now, unless you have questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Because of driver shortage, you had to cancel the regional transportation, that's students.
Yeah, like the CTE programs. Yep.
So did they just miss the classes, or do they transportation, or how
Yeah,
is
what
that
we do
handled?
is we sent word out through the principal as fast as we could to those families specifically. It was an individual message. And we said, hey, we're going to contact, which we did, the facilities, and said, hey, this is the situation we're in. Please excuse these students. So they were excused. But, encouraged if you could find your own way or ride to do so. I didn't get the feedback on how many did that, but no one reached out to me at least and said anything that was too big of an issue. And this happens from time to time when schedules don't align for programs like aviation. We have our students that have to, do their lessons and things for that program in-house, just in the library or somewhere. So it's unfortunate, but, on that one particular day, it was something we had to make a tough choice on because we had to get the city runs done.
I think students are allowed to drive themselves.
Correct,
so
they can.
it's-
Yep.
Okay,
They
thank
can.
you.
Yep, no worries.
And I'm sure we will get into this later too, and I apologize if I missed it taking notes, but for the compensation, the budget includes right now a true-up according to the study, and then is it a 3% raise on top of that?
Correct.
In addition to a $1,000 bonus?
Correct.
That's what I thought.
Correct, yep.
Awesome.
I just had a clarification question on the combined versus double run. I think Artie and I spoke earlier.
Sure.
The combined run, that's when, somebody called out sick, you take half the people from one run and put it into one bus and half in another.
So
I thought they were not getting paid for that earlier, but they are going to get paid in a few.
They currently are. So
Okay.
if we take, typically what we try to do is we call out every morning saying, hey, we need this run covered. And if a driver says, hey, I can take that one, we look at their numbers on their current bus and then numbers on the bus that needs to be picked up. And if it's able, we just combine all of them. If that happens, they get their run rate for their run and for the extra one that they're combining. Same thing with a double back. If they have to go back to get a new set of students, they get that double pay at their rate. Yep. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Next, for our finance and budget update, Ms. Spence. I think everybody's waiting on your presentation.
Alrighty. Good evening, Chair Burbidge, members of the school board, Mr. Tillett, members of the school community and colleague. This evening, we're going to be discussing the fiscal year 26 budget, not only in here, but also our work session. A copy of the fiscal year 26 superintendent's proposed budget will be provided to each of you. And of course, the work session will follow this meeting to discuss the budget in more details and entertain any questions that you may have. The budget has been prepared in line with the governor's proposed budget that he submitted in December, with an additional $225,000 allocated for bonuses, which was reflected in both the House and the Senate budget proposals. In the governor's budget, he has recommended a 3% salary increase for SOQ recognized instructional and support positions. We have based our fiscal year 26 state revenue calculations on a projected ADM of 2,057, which is an increase from our current 2,038 ADM. We feel very confident the way that our enrollment numbers are coming and our projections where it stands right now that we'll meet the 2057 ADM. The state revenue in the superintendent's proposed budget increased by $845,241 as compared to the prior year's original budget. The House and the Senate released their budget proposals on Thursday, February 6th. This chart indicates that both the House and the Senate are recommending the repeal of the support cap, which would result in a $390,000 increase in state revenue for PCPS. Additionally, there is a proposed $88,000 increase allowed in SPED funding. It is also noted that both chambers agreed with a 3% salary increase. The General Assembly is scheduled to adjourn on February 28th. So the two items noted on this slide, the $390,000 increase, as well as the SPED $88,000 increase, is currently not in the superintendent's proposed budget. As previously mentioned, there's a projected net increase in state funding of $845,241 in the proposed budget. The breakdown of the net increase is shown in this chart. We have a decrease in SOQ funding of $333,060, increase in incentive and categorical funding totaling $833,992, and an increase in lottery-funded programs by $344,309, yielding that total projected increase of $845,241. In addition to the state net increase of $845,241, there are additional increases in federal and local funding. The net decrease in federal grants is $38,891. There is a net increase in local revenue comprising of two items. Other miscellaneous revenue is decreasing by $20,800 based on history. And we're requesting an additional $1,626,197 from the city contribution to support the superintendent's budget. So the net projected revenue increase, including all source of funding, local, state, and federal, are increasing by $2,411,747. PCPS recommends adopting the compensation study suggestions from the Management Advisory Group along with the governor's 3% salary increase. The compensation study compared the salaries of all PCPS staff to those of other districts in the region, as well as schools of similar size. The recommendations provided by Management Advisory Group outline the cost to align the school's pay plan with this market average. Additionally, in response to ongoing recruitment and retention challenges for the school's bus drivers and aides, as Mr. Roberts has just discussed, we propose a $3 per hour pay increase, as well as that approximate $5 minimum pay run rate hike. The $1,000 bonus was also included in this budget, along with the increase in health insurance cost due to a 24% rate hike. So there we have outlined the compensation study net increase totaling $1,277,000. The 3% salary increase is totaling $519,874. The $3 per hour for bus drivers and aides, as well as the minimum rate increase, is $88,114. The $1,000 bonus for all staff is $304,500. We have also the benefits associated with these salary items is $368,931. health insurance increase of $461,967, and savings due to efficiencies where we've scrubbed our entire personnel complement and along with proposed vacancies that have been budgeted. We have analyzed our prior hire rates and where they came in at and budgeted likewise, and that contributed to quite a bit of savings. I'll note there that you see the projected cost increase is $2.4 million, and this is just for compensation-related items. Our total revenues have gone up by the same amount. You'll see here in a few minutes in these slides, we kept the non-payroll operating flat in order to make sure that we put all the monies that we could possibly get to pay our staff. Now, the next table here identifies primary increases in the proposed expenditures. We start with that $2.4 million we just discussed, which is payroll related. Most of these items have been discussed in either Ms. Ide's presentation or Mr. Roberts, and they include dual enrollment, SPED purchase services, AP testing. We did have an increase of approximately $39,000 in materials and supplies because we want to honor most of the requests that we possibly could from our schools. Athletic expenses of $33,000, professional development of $20,300, the building maintenance, the alt ed and utilities. So the total increase is $2.8 million. Now, the question is, how did we pay for some of these operating increases, non-payroll operating increases, and how that was done is here. We reduced capital outlay budget that was reflective in the FY25 original budget, did not come over in FY26. The New Horizons reduction of $122,954. Textbooks decreased by approximately $54,000. Aviation Academy, just due to enrollment of the average over the past 3 years, could be reduced. Minor net decreases of $23,000, and then decrease in federal grants as noted. So there was a total projected cost increase of a negative $456. Okay, so this total fiscal year 26 proposed budget reflects a 7.89% increase, or the $2.4 million, compared to the FY25 budget. The distribution of this proposed $32,984,587 budget is shown as this table, with, as you can see, 74% allocated to instruction. Salaries and benefits for all employees account for approximately 82.35% of this budget. This table shows that revenue excluding the city contribution is expected to increase by that $785, which is net of the state and federal. Our expected increase is $2.4 million, as we've shown, is primarily all payroll. So that's where we calculate the $1.6 million ask for the increase in the city contribution. Again, that's to fully implement the Management Advisory Group study, as well as the bus drivers increase, the 3% increase, and the bonuses. Just mentioned, we are asking $1.6 million from the city of Poquoson in addition to their prior contribution. The public hearing will be held Tuesday, March 18th at 6, and a joint school board and city council work session is proposed for April 28th to discuss the board approved budget if needed. I wanted to note that the 2027-2031 capital improvement program will be presented to the school board at the May meeting. We were hoping to have it done same time we do the operational budget. However, additional time is required to gather quotes for some proposed projects. Again, just many thanks to both the support of the city manager, city council, and the school board for entertaining this proposed budget. Have any questions?
First of all, phenomenal job. Thank you to everybody. I mean, I know you in particular, Tracy, this has been a challenge. absolutely understand why you're not trying to do the CIP. Well, you are and you're not, but
Yeah.
waiting on that, absolutely. I just had one thing, I guess, of just a clarification. So the 1.2, I think it was, city funding that we're looking at, state increased theirs 100 and so, and you said that is not included in this?
No, the 845,000 of state revenue is included.
Is
Yes,
included?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Is
I
included, yes, sir,
misunderstood.
yeah.
Okay.
One thing she mentioned that was not included is the slide where there's some action being taken at the General Assembly level that there's some prediction might slow down in the governor's office. So there are two big ticket items, the support cap and some sped funding that has survived both the House and the Senate, but they're projecting some stalling in the governor's office. So if those things do come to fruition and end up signed into the budget, then we will come back to you all in this process to add those numbers into this budget because they're not currently included. We didn't feel comfortable enough with their survival. If they do, they will adjust on the good side of the budget and reduce the ask from the city. So all of the things that could happen in the General Assembly, we think are potentially positive for us moving forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if we wait for the work session or ask here or not, but without the CIP, like what is like the potential wrench in the plans that the CIP could do to this, or is it just its own separate thing? What mindset should we have going into the work session as far as this versus, I know that's looming in the background, and what can that do?
That's actually a very good question. And we have never done CIP along with operation budget at the same time. We were thinking about trying to do that this year because the city has changed their CIP calendar to ask for us to send that to them in early summer. So we thought it was possible that we could do them simultaneously. They are separate items completely. CIP, as you know, is a 5-year plus big project, big ticket items, and the city decides how much of that to consider in their operation budget, because all of those things on CIP are one-time expenditures, not reoccurring. So the other thing that the city always reserves is the opportunity to use debt funding for big ticket items for their own needs and our needs. So we see them as separate completely and not really to be discussed together. It's a whole separate process, and historically we've done it at 2 different times of the year. We were trying to get it done together in this process, but as you know, every item price tag is changing daily, it seems, with inflation. So when we put a number on there, we want it to be as accurate as we can make it, knowing that if it doesn't get funded in the year we request it, it gets moved out a year, we know that number is going to be inaccurate at that point. We've, of course, seen that with the HVAC project that we're working on as we speak for the high school. That number has grown exponentially. And so part of that is already funded, but now we're going to need to find additional funds to meet the new price tag. But we'll be talking about all of those things in our April meeting, probably in preparation for approval in the May meeting. Or are we going to bring it in May?
Bring it in May.
We'll bring it in May for approval in the June meeting. And that meets the deadline for the city. But they are separate pots of money, so to speak. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's,
Artie, just one quick thing. You and I had talked about this a little bit, referring to the HVAC at the high school. You mentioned to me that part of what you routinely do is you look, if I'm not mistaken, it's called a cooperative. Is that right?
That's correct.
Would you mind explaining, just so
Sure, be happy to.
How that works.
It's a process that's been in place and allowed for some years now. And in our region, it's very popular because you can piggyback off of an an existing contract with another school division doing the same sort of thing. For example, we have neighbors that replace HVAC systems and roofs and things like that, often because they're larger school divisions. They may have just signed a contract with a vendor doing a project that we can piggyback on, saving us all the process of engineering and just a lot of expenses. And typically, those collaboratives or cooperatives allow you to piggyback on those and move the project along more quickly. We're hopeful to do that in this project so that we can meet our deadline of the summer, because the risk of going into another, especially cold season with the current boiler, is not advisable. So good question, and I think we're heading in the right direction, but again, the cost of those projects are growing daily, it seems like.
Thank you. I thought that was a great way market saving money on these projects. I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, and our most recent one, it's a good idea to mention, was a very successful one. We replaced the HVAC system at the primary school, and that project was done on a cooperative, and it went flawlessly. If you ask anybody over there, they're very pleased with the product.
I think this is quick for now versus the workshop later, but the health insurance increase, I know we saw the number. Is that being absorbed by the school system, not being passed to the employees?
Yes, absolutely. Very good question as well. And all of these things we'll get in the weeds on in the work session, but very good question about health insurance. As you saw, it was, and I got sticker shock when we got our quote, 24% increase. Historically, at least since I've been here, we have, when we have seen an increase in health benefits, we have absorbed that in the budget to not pass that cost on to our employees. And so we have included it in total in this budget, but it's a huge figure, 500 and...
400-some-thousand.
Yeah. And that is at a 24% increase over our current year. We have gone out to bid for that, and we are waiting for, we've gotten a couple of quotes in, but our management company is ask them to go back and sharpen their pencil a bit, and we're hoping to get a decrease in that. So that number won't go up, but potentially could come down. We're not too hopeful that it's going to come down a great amount, because what we're hearing around the region, everybody's getting these absorbent cost increases for health insurance. All it takes is a few employees with very serious illnesses, and of course it's based on your payout from previous years. So that number will get better, but not one we're all going to jump for joy about. Good question.
Anything else? All right, great.
Thank you, Ms. Spence.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Carroll, do we have any public comments tonight?
You have no public comments tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving along to Section 7, the consent agenda. We have approval of financial reports, authorization to change appropriation and to accept and expend funds in accordance with attached request. We have approval of personnel action and approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Any discussion?
Second.
All right, second. All right, Ms. Carroll, the vote?
Dr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Mr. Claude?
Aye.
Vice Chair DeBose?
Aye.
Dr. Gradell?
Aye.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Chair Burbidge?
Aye.
Vote passes 7-0.
Okay, moving along to Section 8, other matters for consideration. Item A is consideration of approval of proclamation for National School Breakfast Program Week. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Carroll, the vote?
Dr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Mr. Claude?
Aye.
Vice Chair DeBose?
Aye.
Dr. Goodell?
Aye.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Chair Burbidge?
Aye.
Vote passes 7-0.
Okay, moving along to the second item is consideration of approval of proclamation of Career and Technical Education Month. Can I get a motion? Can we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Carroll, the vote, please.
Dr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Mr. Claude?
Aye.
Vice Chair DeBose?
Aye.
Dr. Goodell?
Aye.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell? Chair Burbidge?
Aye.
Vote passes 7-0.
Okay, moving along to Section 9, communications and/or other matters by the school board and/or superintendent. Mr. Maxwell?
All right, I will again begin with my preemptive echoing of what my colleagues will inevitably say that I forgot. I want to first thank the Senior of the Month. Congratulations, that was an outstanding resume. And also congratulations on your acceptance into West Point. It's very exciting. Congratulations to Spelling Bee champ Amelia, the wrestling team, swim teams, all district band students, and all winter sport athletes for successful seasons. Thank you to the Poquoson Art League for that generous gift. Thank you to the school board clerks who keep me in line and make sure I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. Thank you for these beautiful plaques. I will cherish it. Thank you to the food service review team. I think you said Ms. Keely Sullivan and Tina Wolf. Thank you to Ms. I and Mr. Roberts for your presentations, Ms. Spence as well. That's all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Goodell?
Yeah, I wanted to give a special thanks to the middle school for the Battle of the Classes. I know that's always one of the funnest parts of the year for at least my middle schooler, and I know a lot of their friends. It's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of hours, unpaid. But the students really appreciate it. Best of luck to all the winter sports teams on their championships. Our Student of the Month, Samuel Nelson. The Poquoson Art League for generous donation as son of a former art teacher, of being able to have those supplies and be able to do some fun things with their students. So we were really appreciative of that. School board clerks and really my colleagues on this board and all across the country that serve school boards in their communities, it's often a thankless job, and you put yourselves in the bullseyes, as we all know, but thanks for our efforts. That's it.
Thank you. Dr. Bartlett?
Well, I'll echo all the thank yous and all the congrats that they have said. The only new addition that I can offer is that I had the opportunity to participate in, or to attend, the open houses for welcoming potential students to the New Horizons Centers. I went to the Butler Farm open house on February 5th and the Woodside Lane on February 6th. They were really well attended and they were well organized. And I just want to put out there that if students here haven't gone to see those facilities, they should. They're awesome. We really got to go in, and they'll let you go in. I mean, if you go there, they're very welcome. And the student ambassadors that were showing us around were so proud and so eager of the work they're doing. And I mean, they're getting employment opportunities as their students still in school. So it was really an awesome experience, and I was really grateful to be able to represent Poquoson there and participate. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Claude?
I've got a whole page full of things, most of which everybody's covered, which I appreciate. I did want to mention, in addition to the Art League, Exchange Club for the Student of the Month, their part involved in that. It amazes me every packet we get under the donations, how generous the community is. Just quickly, the Kiwanis Club, Lions Club, Alpha Beta Kappa, Delta Kappa ETA chapter, and then various donations from, including the American Legion Post 273, to a criminal justice 2 field trip. So it's just amazing to me, all the all the people we have that are just so helpful to us. The other thing I wanted to add, I also noticed under the personnel actions, at the bottom, we have a whole list of volunteer coaches. Softball, baseball, show choir. I mean, it's, again, I'm overwhelmed by just how wonderful that is. I think it's such an integral part of the school system. Ms. Carroll and Ms. Hyde, congratulations on school clerk appreciation. We do appreciate everything you do, and I appreciate the plaque very much. That was quite a surprise, very nice. And the last thing I want to mention is I had an opportunity last week, I think, to take a tour of each of the schools. And Mr. Tillett led me on that, and then each of the principals walked along with us. And so I want to thank each of you, Ms. Kaysen, Ms. Grisco, Ms. Bunning, and Ms. Winchester, because it was fun, it was educational. Some of the schools that I had been in as a student, and then later when my children and now my grandson is in the primary school, it's just amazing what the facilities look like. They're clean, they're taken care of. The students were great. I mean, as we walked down the hall, they're waving and speaking to Artie and to the principals. It was just a great experience. And I will add here at the end, I learned a couple of terms. I learned what an auditoria is and a cafetorium. Is that right? So to me, it was amazing. At the elementary school, you had the cafeteria, but also has an area for a stage to be used as an auditorium. And then in the middle school, which I had not seen that improvement, just huge, looks nothing like it used to, but the auditorium that also serves as a cafeteria. Again, these money-saving things, efficiencies, I see them all throughout the system, and it's just thank you all for what you do and how you do it. It was a great day for me. That's all I have.
Ms. Jones?
All right. As I do each month, I have been considering some noteworthy items to share in this time. And in addition to singing the praises of another outstanding Battle of the Classes event, one of my favorites, hosted by Poquoson Middle School last week, I just found myself, I took some notes here, so I apologize for reading, but I just kept thinking of the always clever words of wisdom from a very dear friend of mine. So I am diverging a little bit because Elise Sevilla has really been on my heart, most especially over the past few weeks as she continues her courageous battle against cancer. Elise is a Poquoson High School class of 2001 alumnus, and she continues to be one of the brightest lights to have ever walked the halls of PHS. She has always reminded me personally of the value of positive energy, and even since serving on this board, has offered me advice, perspective, book recommendations, and an encouraging spirit that she probably has no idea has been the gift it has been. So I just first wanted to take this time, because I knew I could, just say I would echo the sentiments of my fellow board members, so I share in all of their congratulations. But I just wanted to quickly share what I have been thinking about and believe I've decided are my two favorite inspirations from Elise. And she once told me not to be an energy vampire. In other words, do not suck the life out of a group by forgetting the power of passion mixed with positivity in working together to achieve a common goal. And second, sometimes the simplest, I think, may be the most impactful, but when life hands you lemons, always try to make lemonade. So thank you all for allowing me to diverge a little and just share what I have found to be very inspirational for myself.
Thank you. Mr. DeBose?
Well, echo everything that everybody said, and related to passion, I want to underscore what Artie and Ms. Spence and everybody else has just done from a budget standpoint. They have put together a budget that has turned around and brought Poquoson back up to where we should be, okay? And again, this is a proposed budget. We still have to go through our workshop. We've got to go through city council. We've got to go through all that. But I hope everybody sees the dedication that not only the school board, but the school board office has for the system. You know, that's the type of passion that lives up here on this board and that lives within this community. So, you know, I want everybody to really kind of take that in because, you know, we're trying and we're trying hard. You know, there's a lot of criticism going on out there about our school system, about our school board. You know, we're trying to do the right thing. So just please keep that in mind. So, thanks.
Thank you. I want to reiterate all the things that were said further down the dais. A couple of things I wanted to talk on. I did have 3 things that I attended this month. I did make it to the Career and Technical Education meeting. We went through, there were some folks there from the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. There was a representative from New Horizons. I am trying to arrange for some individual tours out at New Horizons. If I hear back from him, I'll let you know. We did go through a needs assessment and the Perkins grant, which involved performance reports and overviews of 23-24, 24-25, and then also preparing for the 25-26 Perkins grant application. We did go over an overview of local employment data and then needs for the CTE 25-26 school year. Second thing I attended, I did go to the SEAC meeting, and there was a wonderful presentation there from the Virginia Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services. She talked a lot about the pre-employment transition training for students that are special needs, but that are going to be going into the workforce when they graduate or when they leave high school. This is something that a lot of parents are concerned about. You know, what's going to happen to my child when they're done with high school? And these folks have got, or the state of Virginia has an excellent program. That's who this is run through. I encourage parents that are concerned about it to please look into it. It's a good program. Lastly, I went to the primary school earlier, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, for the 2 Fridays ago for the, it was a market, money market. And it was part of the math curriculum where the kids are learning, well, they did a lot of things. They made crafts, they learned about buying, they learned about selling, and they even had, I don't know where the money came from. I don't know who made it. Oh, good behavior. And so it was really interesting to see the kids negotiate for price. There were price drops. They were learning about real market issues. You know, it goes along with what my son was doing at the primary or at the elementary school with the pizza market. So I think this is all involved in the math curriculum that our students are learning. I did want to also, let me find the rest of my notes. I wanted to thank the Poquoson Art League. The $800 for each of our schools is very generous. My son loves art. We have more art pencils and crayons and pens than you could shake a stick at, but arts are very important in Poquoson, and I'm always amazed whenever I walk through the schools, the amazing art that I see on the walls. I want to also thank the Senior of the Month, Samuel Nelson, a 4.44 GPA and acceptance to the United States Military Academy in West Point, New York is something to be proud of. Lastly, I want to thank the school office for developing a budget that I think is going to catch our teachers up and get them the compensation that we think they need, so we're not losing teachers to other school systems. I also am thankful that we're going to try and address the deficiencies in bus driver pay. I know that a lot of people in our community have been very concerned about it because you're waiting on the bus to get there and you're late for work, or you're trying to, in the afternoon, get your kids to doctor's appointments or tutoring or something like that, and they're getting home late. Hopefully this will help us retain bus drivers and also recruit new bus drivers. And so that's all I have. Thank you.
Again, being last, I echo everything that's been said, but I do have a few additional comments if you'll allow me a few minutes. First, I want to thank you as a board. I've worked for school boards for 34 years, and I tried to count the other day how many individual board members I've worked with in my career, and I lost track. There's been a lot of folks. And one thing I know about good school board members is they have one thing in common, and that is they care deeply about children and the success of children and doing what's in their best interest even when it's difficult. And I would like to say from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate your time and energy and dedication to this very difficult work and often thankless work. So I appreciate you, and that's just a small token, and we do have a little treat in there for you, but just a token of our appreciation for your hard work and dedication, individually and collectively. Secondly, I would be remiss if I didn't, and I could go on and on about this, thank our core team of folks who helped put together this budget. In addition to our regular jobs of operating a school system, we have to, on the side, build a budget, a comprehensive budget, based on moving targets of what's going on in the General Assembly, what happened in the governor's office. And I'll tell you that Tracy Spence, our CFO, is a rock star. She knows this process inside and out, but not only does she know what she's doing, she spends countless hours, nights and weekends, putting all this together, crunching numbers, having to deal with my chaos. And then she works with arm in arm with Mr. Roberts and Ms. Ide in our central staff, and then collecting all the feedback from our principals and our directors, and every single staff member has had input in this budget. So I'm proud of this budget. It's a comprehensive budget. It's an ambitious budget, the most ambitious budget I've ever presented. But it's the right thing to do in this time. Now, also I want to thank the mayor and the city council and the city manager, because they've been a part of this throughout the process as we start meeting months prior and start talking about reading the tea leaves about what's going on in Richmond to try to land on a budget that we can all support. This budget is going to be a huge undertaking for city council to consider. Whether they can get there or not, who would know? It's a very, very ambitious ask. But I want to thank them. I have said it everywhere I've been. They are the most supportive governing body I've ever worked with in my career as it relates to taking care of kids in the community. I've heard it said years ago, you can judge the health of a community based on how it takes care of its oldest and youngest citizens. And this community is a flagship for taking care of our youngest and oldest citizens. And the way they approach the very difficult task of funding all of the things the city does with a limited amount of resources, with no major industry. It's extraordinary to see what this group of governing officials do year after year after year. So I thank them deeply and appreciate the task that is ahead for them in working with us on this very challenging budget. And lastly, I want to thank also, one of you mentioned as well, the volunteers and folks who donate to our schools year after year after year. Poquoson Education Foundation, the Kiwanis Club, the Art League, year after year after year, just to name a few. Every board meeting, you see a list of donations and people who volunteer. And as you said, I think, Mr. Claude, this is not new to this meeting. It's every meeting, year after year after year, and we're just so thankful. We couldn't do what we do without the support of this community, and we appreciate it greatly. So thank you.
Thank you, Artie. Lastly, Ms. Carroll, do we have any other material for board review?
No, we have no additional material.
Okay, thank you. Well, at that note, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Just FYI, we'll be taking a quick break, and then we're going to go in.
little table. Do you think? Okay.
Okay. Test. Ooh, that's a good one. That won't be like that. No. I can try to hook one more up. I think we leave it. Put one more out. I believe we should put it there.
You want some? Yeah. Are you serious? There's other ones here. You want one? That's kind of old.
I like these Mr. Good bars and the Kit Kat, so this
I don't
is
have, I didn't buy good bars, I know for sure.
Well, we got a random one in here.
Okay.
Oh, there's another random one. I'm gonna clean you out on the Mr. Good bar front.
See what you need to do.
And I'm gonna try Rackle. I'm gonna have diabetes, so.
Yeah.
Okay, then I say we leave it. I'll go unmute, I'll go mute it again.
Good evening, everybody. This is the February 18th, 2025 Poquoson City Public Schools Budget Open Work Session. I'd like to bring that to order right now. Artie?
Okay, a little loud here. Thanks, Dr. Burbidge. Just a couple of backdrop dynamics of this budget to tee it off a little bit, and then kind of frame our work here, since some folks, this is your first budget work session. I'll just try to, excuse me, give a little backdrop in how this budget process unfolds. First, we start back in November, December, reaching out to our staff to ask what you need to do your job, what it is that we can find resources for, to help you do your job. So it's a zero-based budget is another way to look at it. We start with zero. And then they tell us all of those things. We do the same thing with our directors. So what do we need to service special education children? What do we need to service student services, so on and so forth. Then all of this feedback request is culminated into the expense side of our, or request side of our ledger. And then we start monitoring the governor's budget. And that is the first document that we receive with a revenue side proposal. As you know, in Virginia, we operate on a biennium budget. So this budget is the second year of the biennium. So generally speaking, what's supposed to happen is the General Assembly and the governor just go in and do minor tweaks. Well, that couldn't be farther from the truth. What actually happens even in the biennium is a lot of revisions happen. And the last several years, we haven't gotten an actual complete budget until summer or later. It was fall, I think, last year. So all of that process is what I like to refer to as organic. However, by statute, we have to provide an approved budget by the school board to our funding partners, in our case, the city of Poquoson, by the end of March. So all of this timeline is quick and a lot going on during that. I don't know how many iterations of this budget we've done in the last several weeks. As we get more information, those numbers move around. So what, in a nutshell, what you heard from Tracy tonight is this is a significant budget as it relates to human resources, which makes up 82% of the Poquoson City's $33 million budget request. And it's pretty much always that way, that I've never worked with a school budget that wasn't at least 80% of the overall, well, personnel wasn't at least 80% of the overall budget. I tell people we're a people business, of people, by people, for people. So that's what you'll find as the overriding theme. And as you heard Tracy say tonight, we have found every possible place to tighten our belts, things we can do this without compromising performance and the needs of our teachers and our students, and taking into account inflation in cost of everything. We have scrubbed this budget to be as minimal as possible, but also add in the elephant in the room, which is the product of a comprehensive salary study, the first time it's been done for Poquoson schools in many, many years. What we have said at these tables since I've been here every year is we know we're at the bottom of the list in salary compensation packages for our employees, and always have been. What this does, based on the proposal from the comp study, is built in this budget is a proposal to be at the regional average. And that's something we need to keep in mind as we talk about this. We're not going to be at the top, where we'll be far from the bottom, but we'll be at a regional average in all categories. So we took into account our paraprofessionals. They are, in some cases, our lowest salaries, and those showed in this study a significant gap between our paraprofessionals' compensation and our competitors around the region. And so this budget addresses that significantly and will get our paras up to a regional average, and that so on and so forth throughout our study. The other thing that this budget does is accounts for the 3% proposal for salary across the board. It's important to note that since I've been here, we have seen a 23% pay increase over the last 4 years. And in my 34-year career, I've never seen anything like that. But a lot of that was from COVID money that went through the hands of the General Assembly and ended up as salary matches from the state over the last 4 years. And then, of course, this budget has the 3%, which would be a total of 26% over 5 years for all city school system employees for Poquoson, which we're proud of. But it's important to note that as we did that, since these were matched funds from the state, also did each of our school systems around us. So my dad used to always say, a high tide floats all the boats. A 5% comes from the state. Fortunately for us and our neighbors, their funding partners, their cities or county governments have been able to do that match, and they've gotten that 5% or 6% or 4%, whatever it was in those years. So as we have seen 26%, including this budget, across the board, so have our competitors, never moving the needle. And as you all know, a 4% pay raise or 5% pay raise on a lower salary is less than a 5% pay raise on a higher salary. So the gap widens over time. So those are just the dynamics of where we are. We're available now to talk about any particular line item, anything you want to look at specifically in that budget. And we know you've just seen it tonight. The next step is we will be scheduling some planning meetings. This will be the first time we've done that, but we thought with 3 relatively new board members, it might be helpful. And we encourage each of you to participate. Carol will send out a calendar where you can sign up for slots and sit in front of us after you've had time to chew on this and talk individually. These are some things I'm concerned about or want to address, or make sure that this budget, because in March it's just going to be not my budget anymore, it'll be your budget, hopefully, and that will be what we deliver to the city. We want it to be one you're proud of and takes into account all of the things that you would like to see us prioritize as we move forward. So, long introduction, but Tracy, do you want to add anything else to that?
I think you summed it up quite well.
I just want to add, this is a lot to digest in one meeting. I would definitely, I think, Artie's offer to sit down with us, would be sort of a 2-on-1, 3-on-1 situation. Definitely help answer any questions about the budget that you may have in a more, faster manner than if you call Artie in and you wait because he's in a meeting or you're in a meeting. We have 1 month, or basically we have to have this figured out by the end of March, and that's a state law. So it goes to City Council at the end of March. We have to approve it by then. So I'm definitely going to take advantage of it because there's a lot to digest here. So that's all I had.
I want to say on the surface, being probably the most senior person here now, that's crazy. This was a long process coming, but Artie, thank you. I mean, I think this, last year, Mayor called me and said, what's your problem with the budget? I'm like, you're asking me as a professional to, what I know is right. We need to pay these teachers, and, with the compensation study and on the surface, I'm going to dig in, but I mean, on the surface, I'm proud and excited that, this budget is becoming a reality, and something that has the possibility of going forward. So I thank you and all your staff for the hard work, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Just one thing, and this is something, again, you and I talked about that I didn't realize, and maybe I was, I know it's been, I think you said like 12 years or something since the last study was done.
Right.
I think that's significant. Secondly, I didn't realize that all of the step increases, if I'm saying it right, have been frozen for a long time. So, yes, thank goodness you had the raises coming in, 26% ultimately that'll come through this budget, hopefully. But I just think that's, I know having retired from the shipyard, I remember many times when the company, for whatever the reason was, they froze your salary and you got whatever the basically cost of living increase was. It's very hard to continue to sustain, your daily life with household expenses and things when you're not getting that step increase and you're looking forward to it and can plan ahead. So I'm hoping to kind of piggyback on what Tim said. I agree 100%. I think this is going to be a great step in the right direction, and I hope that will set the folks on the course of being able to get these every year as is intended.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, just a couple things, and I just ran some quick numbers, and Tim, I need you to make sure that I did this right, but, inflation right now at end of December of '24, 2.9, thereabouts, right? And we're looking at an overall budget increase of 7.9%, right? So essentially 5% is outside of inflation. And I say that real quick just for everybody's, all things equal, take the compensation study out of the equation, take everything else out of the equation, we would be looking at a $600,000 increase, from an inflation standpoint. So, this $1.6 million that we're looking at, to ask the city for, really the focus needs to be on how much more than 600,000 are they willing to pitch in, right? Artie's done a great job of balancing a whole bunch of stuff and being able to do a lot of things inside of this to ensure, a good set of pay raises for everyone. But, I kind of put that into perspective for everyone as well. And a conversation that Artie and I had that I think, and I'll let Artie kind of embellish on it a little bit, is about, that as of right now, it sounds like Poquoson is the only school system within our area that is doing a compensation study and is trying to act on it right now. And that's very important because if somebody else does a compensation study and turns around and jumps us, then our compensation study that we're doing right now, and the jump means nothing. Because we just fall back to the bottom, right? So it's very important, I think, and Artie said it in our session, like the timing is right for this, and I don't think anybody in here is going to disagree with it, with the concepts of what we're trying to do here, but just to try to reinforce the fact that, this truly is the right timing. We've got some other school systems around here that are in deficits right now from a budget standpoint, that they're actually looking at having to cut their budget because of deficits from a city standpoint.
Yeah, I totally agree, and would even add that, the timing is right on a lot of levels. I don't want to speak for the city ever, but this is a reassessment year, so that's the timing is better for the city to be able to help us, more than other years. As Mike said, I don't know of another school division who has just launched just finished a comp study. Now, some school divisions do this on a fairly regular basis to see where they land, but what's great about our comp study is it is comprehensive in that they looked at the whole region and came up with a really good average, so that bar something like Mike says, another comp study coming out and one of the divisions becoming a significant outlier and skewing the averages significantly is probably not going to happen in this budget cycle. Now, could it happen next budget cycle? Yes. So all the more reasons to do as much of it as we can in one fell swoop. Now, I will tell you, I sweated with this thing, because when you look at a number like that, knowing the size of our budget and the size of the city's budget, we make up about 31% of the city's budget already on an annual basis. So it's a significant ask, but at the same time, it's the right timing and it is the right thing, because we are equipped now with it in black and white. No more anecdotal, we're at the bottom. This shows you exactly where we compare against each one of those. And you all, I know, have had time to study the study and look in there and line item. The other part I like about it is the fact that it addresses all employees. There's not an employee out of the 305 that work with Poquoson schools that is not addressed, and that this management group that did this comprehensive study didn't look at in great detail. The mins and the maxes and the averages are all addressed in this budget. So, yeah.
This, if I remember reading through the study, it recommended, I guess, in there about this being done, speaking about doing it. And is that something we'll have an arrangement with the management group, this study being done every or so?
Yeah.
Be it a year, 2, 5? but,
Every 5 years is typical.
So it'll continue to be, so we're not looking at it.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that I'm hopeful is we're able to continue, because it's one of the things that's gotten us in the situation we're in. The two perfect storms. One, the recession in 2009 to 11, all school divisions and most municipalities in the country had to tighten their belt significantly, and one of the first things that school divisions do, in addition to riffing positions that they can just struggle through without, is a better way to put it, is they freeze salary scales, and as did Poquoson. And over time, those salary scales have to be unfrozen if you're going to be competitive, because if we hire a teacher from somewhere else that has an unfrozen salary schedule, they're going to get their cost of living plus every year. Our folks that have been with us for quite a while are the ones who are most disadvantaged. And if you looked at the upper end of that scale, these are dedicated employees who've been serving the families of Poquoson for many, many years. And every year they get another year of experience, but they don't get that automatic bump. So what this does is it addresses that, makes up for lost time, and if we do this study every 5 years, we'll continue to address this moving forward, which is, I think, prudent management of money.
Marty, does it make sense, and I'm asking from an experience standpoint on what you've seen before, does it make sense for us to put in our school board policy a requirement to do a comp study every 5 years?
We could. That's something I haven't actually seen in a board policy, but it's something you could do. And that would just, for posterity, we won't always be here. You can put it in the policy, and then it kind of forces somebody to look at it.
What was the cost of the comp study?
It was $30,000. Right at $30,000, which is actually very reasonable. I've been involved with probably 6 of these comp studies in my career, and maybe 7. And that number, when we got the price, I thought that seems extremely reasonable, and I was not sure we were going to get the service that we got. I know of some organizations, even around us, that have launched comp studies and they were disappointed in the results. This study is very comprehensive. So I think we got a bang for our buck, and I think it's prudent to try to make sure that happens every 5 years. So
Something
we'll
for
work
everybody-
on some policy.
Something for everybody to think about.
Yeah, to look at.
You don't want to leave yourself in too big of a hole. Like the university I worked for waited 15 years, and you couldn't dig yourself out of
Right.
the hole to get your faculty.
We're in a similar,
right.
we're in a similar scenario now, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
you know.
I like your idea
I do too.
about
Yeah.
making that part.
We will certainly look into some policy and come back to y'all with that. I think that's a great idea as well.
I was just going back to what you mentioned before about kind of the true up for our more experienced educators. You and I had spoken before about longevity supplements. Some other surrounding divisions, have done such. And again, I was just looking at the supplement schedule. I mean, of course, they are not included here. However,
This doesn't-
indirectly, it kind of addresses that same kind of
Absolutely.
true up.
Very good
Okay.
point, and we looked at lots of different ways to do this, and this is the cleanest way because it accounts every year for that increase, included catch-up. So if you look, it's not the same amount in each one because it's gone through and caught up employees who've been with us for some time. Once that's the scale is at work, then our current employees are caught up, and then they stay caught up because they're going to get the bump every year. So it does both. Now, it's not to say that we don't down the road want to look at a longevity supplement on top of that. That's something you can look at down the road. We do want to, you've seen it on all of our stuff, and it's by design. We want to recruit, retain, and grow our employees. So retention, I can't tell you the number of conversations I've had with people here in Poquoson that I have a great deal of respect for, who've been serving our kids for years and years and years, who have in the back of their mind, if I'm going to retire, I've got to get my salary up for those 3 years. The magic formula in Virginia is the average of your highest 3 years. And we lose great educators at the top of the scale. They love it here, and they're doing wonderful work, and we want to keep them. And they're looking at, what am I going to do for my retirement? And if they're going to pay me $12,000 a year higher for my 3-year average, it changes their finances for the rest of their lives. And I can't blame them for that. But this budget addresses that. Now, if we don't get the whole thing, and this is kind of the next elephant in the room question, and again, I don't envy the work the city council has to do to address this budget request. It's ambitious. So if we don't get the whole thing, I think it's prudent for us to have possible plans in place, and we're working on that. Tracy's already started that process. I've started to look at how we can scale this over time. Hope we don't have to, but if we do, if they give us X, we will then plug into this formula that this pay scale generates in the same proportion. So it will still address the upper end employees at the rate that the proposal is designed to address. Whatever the amount of money we end up with from our city. And I know they're going to do everything they can. I believe that. And then whatever that number is, we will address it directly in this pay plan, because we're pretty confident that we're going to get from the city enough to do the other pieces. And that's why they are separated out. So the comp study is a one number that can be adjusted with a different number. Everything else is, from my perspective, kind of a hard and fast, non-negotiable. That includes, and why we intentionally broke out the transportation, that addresses them separately. That would be our first thing we do with whatever we get from the city. And again, we've made the request to the city, or will make the request if you all approve this budget, to address only compensation, the whole package. What we're asking for over this year's budget is only compensation. The 3%, the bus drivers, the one-time $1,000 bonus, and the benefits. Let's not forget that piece. We were hopeful to not have that astronomical number, but we don't have anything we can do with that.
But there are other school divisions, I know we talked about that they pass
that
that
on.
along. And so, thank goodness we don't do that. But I mean, that to me, I think is another huge benefit because if you think about what you do get as an increase, and then if we passed part of that 24% increase along to the employees and they had,
Then they have to turn around and pay it out in,
Yeah,
they get a raise and they have to turn
really
around and
haven't
pay
gotten
it.
it right, so.
Yeah,
Well, I think that's a good way to do it, and again, kudos to all of you for figuring that in and how we could do it, so.
Any other questions? And I know you've just seen this now. You'll have more questions. I do hope you are able to carve out some time. I know you're busy. But if we could sit down and look through, because you might find something that we missed. And in addition, you might find something that's not represented in this budget that you want to. And we can then look at it. Again, as Chris said, we've got a month. And before we have to have our hearing and deliver it on the 18th of March. But that gives us time to do some tweaks if we need to.
I'm going to ask this, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to make sure, outside of the compensation, is there anything in this budget that we're fearful of from a volatility standpoint?
You mean something from the funding side of it that could go away?
Expense side.
Oh, the expense side, okay.
I don't really think so. I think when we're looking at the operational part, particularly with maintenance, things like that, we tried to address, like Mr. Roberts said, getting things on a maintenance plan and starting building that, because that's something that will progressively increase because as your facilities age. So, but, with the new HVAC system coming on, which is very important, we've spent significant funding in just keeping that thing operational. So we're hoping, so we tried to balance the new and the old.
Yeah, I understand now what specifically you're saying, and what I would say kind of in a nutshell to add to what Tracy said, it's a skinny budget as it addresses those things, but I think it covers everything we're going to need. We were very careful to make sure there's no fat in it, but at the same time, it's from trends over the last several years, it covers all of our operational costs. But very good question.
Is the ADM, are your
Another good question.
confident? I mean, I know it was like an increase. It could be more, could be less.
We've hemmed and hawed about this, and of course, you lived through it as a board member where we overshot it one year. And the way the state funds schools, I won't get on that. I won't get on my soapbox, but just read the JLARC study, and it's a full indictment of the funding model for schools in the Commonwealth. But with that said, we're pretty confident that our ADM is going to land around that amount. We hovered around 2038 with our last budget, and we just hit it at the nick of time. It's the March 20 ADM count that actually generates the money. So if you've overshot it, you got to give back money. And if you've undershot it, you can get an increase. But we're pretty confident that we're going to land right around the 2057 in the ADM for FY26. If we're off, we won't be off more than a couple of kids. So I think we're in good shape. Now we're using where we are now versus as well as the Weldon Cooper demographic study that indicates we're going to get 350 over the next 4 years, with the baseline being this current year.
And also consulting with the city about how.
And their planners, based on their sales and what's already happened at Legacy and the other two smaller communities. So I'm real confident that we're going to be in good shape. Now, what could happen, and this is maybe a stretch, I'm still convinced that people have purchased those places and are going to move over the summer. A lot of people don't move their kids during the school year. I wouldn't move mine during the school year if I could help it. So it's possible that some of the sales already have kids attached to them, and we'll see those kids in June, registering June, July, and show up here in August. I'm hopeful that's the case, because if that does happen, we'll be able to adjust with ADM, and that generates additional funds if those kids show up. Kind of, you build it, they will come. We will actually gain those ADM, and it's about $7,500 a kid, close to that,
That's right.
isn't it? Is the state per pupil allotment. That's where it kind of lands, around $7,500. If you look at state funding, divide by our ADM, that's where it lands. So that's
Is that
good
yearly?
news.
Is that for your
Annually.
fiscal year?
Yes.
So no matter whether we're up or down, it's not, the state won't look at it from the standpoint of their budget until this time each year. Is that right?
Yeah, in other words, we give them the number. Now, they give us a forecast as well, but we use a lot of different things because their forecast may not be perfectly accurate. We tend to think we know more about our demographics than they do, but, so we use that number, and that number is powerful because that's how they fund us. So if we use 2057, they're going to give us the $7,500 per kid on the state side of that. And then the city doesn't use a funding formula like that. But, you know, there is even possibility down the road of looking at a funding per pupil funding formula for the city. There's pros and cons to that because it doesn't address any dramatic swings, as does the state funding formula. It is a per pupil funding. Now, there are other line items in the state. There's some line items for special needs children, for what? ESL, yeah. So there are other line items that are in addition to ADM, but that's the general funding formula. That's the basic aid where most of the money comes from.
So if your number is 2057 right now, let's say we end up at 2067 somewhere during the year, the state's not going to adjust anything until we present the 2067 number.
March 20.
In March,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. We do a report every so often that goes to the state, and they're
okay,
kind of
gotcha.
looking at it. But
That's
the
what I was
magic,
wondering.
the magic date is the 20th of March. That's where and again, I won't get on the soapbox, but that's part of the flawed system.
Right.
Yeah, there's a whole case study on migrant students where they moved to the place on March 20th. That school got all the windfall, and then the other
yeah.
school lost on it. They were educated.
Very good example.
That's a
Yeah.
good point.
There's so many pieces. I would encourage everybody to read that J. Lark study. There's so many pieces to how this funding formula has evolved over time in Virginia that in just trying to kind of put Band-Aids on how we fund. A lot of that happened during the recession when they were trying to find out how to get as much money as they could to schools, not having a lot of money. And there are better ways to do it, and the General Assembly is trying to get to that as fast as they can, but these are billion-dollar conversations. So, for example, Tracy mentioned and put a slide in there, there are two pots of money that have been agreed upon already by the House and the Senate, but have to go to the governor's office. One is the support cap. Back in the recession, they put a cap on support positions, and that cap has remained. And so we don't get that funding. And that, the bill that's been introduced since I've been here every year has failed, but it just passed. So if that happens, there's another significant chunk of money that we could get in this budget. The issue, without, again, getting in the weeds, the governor has a car tax that would have to be changed, a car tax proposal, in order to fund the support cap removal. I'm not a gambler, so I really don't know how much I would bet on either side of this, but my hope is that maybe there's some compromise that can happen and we can get some portion of that support cap removed, and we would add that, whatever that dollar is, to reduce the request from the city. We've designed this budget intentionally for that. We put it in there today just so you all would know that there is a possibility that this will improve, as well as the quotes for the benefits. That can do nothing but go down. We're not expecting a big swing, but it will be a little better than the 24%.
Going back to the ADM, I mean, federal government now is drastically reducing their workforce. Is there any consideration for all the federally employed?
Not directly, but very good question, and everybody's on pins and needles. I've talked to probably a half dozen people in the last week or two that are local people who are federal government connected employees. They either work directly for the federal government or whatever business they're in is funded in large part by government contracts. Every one of those folks I've talked to are scared to death. It could have a radical effect on everybody's budget statewide, but particularly those folks in this region because we're so federally connected. 22%, I think, maybe 23% of our students in Poquoson are military-connected families. So how that will affect this budget, we just don't know. So very good question, and we just don't know how to account for it. It won't be good news if it does start to affect us. But my hope is that they'll get that stuff straightened out before our funding cycle starts. But good question.
There's one thing I haven't looked in here, but I know we talked about it. We talked about the funeral leave, the bereavement leave. Is that part of it?
It is, because what we looked at, we're still studying that.
Okay.
And we can come to you all with a policy related to that. What we decided is that's a cost neutral.
Okay.
We looked at the fact that doesn't actually have a price tag attached. So it's something that is a good idea. We have to look at some benefits, pieces of how we would change our policy. But we've got that ball rolling. Mr. Roberts and HR are looking at this. So if we do that, we'll come to you with a separate proposal that would be we would take our bereavement policy and present you all a strike and bold new policy that would account for the 3 additional days, which the part we've done is found out it's cost neutral.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, it's something that we had talked about. I know everywhere I worked, you had, it was paid, 3 days were paid, and I know it's small probably, but I'm hoping too that might even help with some of
Be another incentive
the
for
recruiting
employees.
and also the format that you mentioned. That's an excellent point. If somebody's looking at that chart and they're not aware of where the education piece of it is.
And that's something that we found from the comp study. The comp study teaches you a lot of things, not just how, where you are in the comparison to compensation around the region, but also how they lay out their pay plans. And we've learned from the research how they're identified. There was room for improvement in how we advertise our positions, and this is one of them. Now it's the new pay plan will show right at the top, bachelor's plus, and so anybody can look at that, and all they need to know is how many years of experience they have, and they know exactly, and that would be a cleaner recruiting tool for us. Yeah.
This, 35-year step plan is a huge recruiting tool for us.
Yep.
That, it allows us to, when Mr. Roberts goes to these job fairs, and, we can start targeting some of these highly sought-after, experienced teachers, instead of, we appreciate all of our teachers, that come here, but sometimes we'll be able to recruit those A-list teachers. We'll be able to keep these teachers long-term. If you looked at the compensation study from years 20 through 35, you saw a huge discrepancy in salaries. And I think that this step plan will help alleviate that.
Well, the city recently, I guess toward the end of last year, they had a compensation study done for the police and fire, if I'm not mistaken, for public safety. Yes, my thought with that is it's similar in a way. I think people that are serving in law enforcement or firefighting, rescue, and teachers, you have passion for it. I think it's a calling.
Yep.
And so the teachers that we have that have been here for years, despite maybe what the financial side of it was, they love Poquoson, they love the students. And I think that's the same with those that I'm familiar with in public safety. So I think this, again, is a good time. They've done that on the city side. And I think it's, like everybody said, it's time.
Yep, I totally agree.
So I had a quick question on the dual enrollment line. I think it was like $50,000. How did you develop that, and then how might College Now impact that in years to come? You know, so it's not a big hit.
Very good question. Our vision for College Now is a growth program, starting with a cohort of 30 students that will be, application, qualification, to take part in this program. And as Ashley said, we'll have some kids that will do multiple classes, some kids will pick one here and there, some kids will do the associate's degree. And it's a choice model, not to be just dual enrollment. You can pick, I always likened it, having built this same program back where I came from, to a cafeteria. You know, you put on your plate what you want. Some kids are going to do some dual enrollment and some AP. Some are going to do more of one than the other. It's really a choice program, but it starts with the number came from the 30 cohort, assuming they take an average of X number of classes. It will roll out next year with those same kids taking the second year of the program and a new group coming in. So each year that we will be addressing that in the budget as an additional line item that will grow over time. The way my vision is for it, we want to be able to fund as many kids who will take part in it as want to. I think it's the very best thing we can do for a kid, to let them really put, for two reasons. One, certainly saves them and their family a lot of money in affording college. But the second thing it does is it convinces them that they can do high rigor college work while in high school with the support we can provide them. The statistics are real, and they've been that way for many, many years. We send kids off to college. They're our top 36, 37% in the class. They get recruited to great colleges, they're qualified, and then they get there and they don't have the network of support that we provide, and they're not mature enough, and they come home. I think it's right around just over a third of kids who enter college graduate with a bachelor's degree. Well, that's not because they're not qualified and ready, it's because they're not mature enough, and they get there and sometimes make some bad decisions. So when we convince them they can do this work while we're able to support them and put some courses under their belt, the track record is those kids that transfer in through that actually have a much higher graduation rate. It's significantly higher, actually. So there's a lot of reasons to invest in this, but we thought $50,000 was a reasonable start. And we've gotten good support so far with the Virginia Peninsula Community College. That hasn't always been that case, but we've gotten really good support, and Ashley and her team have done a brilliant job of building that network, really, so that we can get those kids started. And again, we're going to have multiple delivery options, from face-to-face, on campus with us. And you notice the other piece of that that connects is we've got $20,000, I think, in the budget to help teachers who want to get those licensed to be able to teach those courses. Then that makes those courses free to us, already paid for, by our staff. So good question, and I think it's a good start.
Could I add to that? Just
Please,
one
yeah.
thing? We're also pursuing some grant funding to help support those teachers with those additional credentials, like VDOE has some available grant funding right now. If we can find accredited Virginia institutions, even if they're private. So for example, Hollins, which is a private university, This grant money, we've learned, is eligible there, and they offer a certificate of advanced studies, and they will tailor the classes to the 18 credit hours that you need to be able to be qualified. So we have a few teachers who expressed interest, and again, the point to that would be using our own teachers. Specifically, we have a social studies teacher. We'd love to find math and science, which are some of our big ticket items, to fill some of those hard to fill.
Yeah, we'll take you, you can just send us your science kid.
I have a question about the reduction, the 38,000-ish reduction in federal funding. Is that just the natural end of the K-5 literacy grant?
No, it's primarily the Title I, Title II, and Title IV, where they have just adjusted just the amount that they're going to fund during the year.
So it's not based on ADM or?
No, no, ma'am. No, not the federal money, no.
It's not a reversion, though, and it has nothing to do with jobs and all of that stuff? Okay.
It's and that federal funding is a moving target.
Right.
It changes annually, and a lot of it is connected to particular children, economically disadvantaged students, and as those numbers move around, it does affect the funding, but they also reduce the amount, and over time. I hope that's not a trend, because it can be, where federal funding gets cut in certain categories, and there's potential for some of that to be in this next budget cycle.
And it's all, most of it's formula-based, so as other divisions' numbers move, then our numbers move. So, but most of those funding, I know you've probably heard that during the freeze, it was formula-based, so we felt like we were in pretty good shape. Yeah.
So actually, I had a question, maybe to follow up on what you presented about the state cutting their funding, haven't told us they're going to fund the Canvas anymore. Have we looked into other options? Are there other learning management software options out there that we could pursue if that funding doesn't?
Absolutely, and that's an excellent question. First, let me say, I'm still hopeful that Canvas is going to get funded. The main reason that I'm hopeful is Jen Cannell is looking at me like she's not so confident. Okay. Okay. And Jen is, as you know, in charge of this program for us, so she would be more knowledgeable than anybody. But I'm hopeful only because this affects almost every school division in the state. And the $45,000 price tag is for one of the smallest divisions in the state. Can you imagine what the cost of this is for Hampton schools who also use Canvas, or Newport News, or Fairfax? And when the state buys for 133 school divisions anything, and then in one budget cycle says, oh, by the way, we're not going to fund that anymore, the screaming is loud and continuous. So I do have hopes. There are bills now circulating around that are not directed at Canvas, but that have some technology funding for the Virginia Department of Education, which is actually where this comes from. So I'm hopeful that we're going to see that, and of course, like everything else, if we get the funding, we're going to take that $45,000 and plug it back into our pay plan to reduce the cost to the city. But the other question is, are there other companies that do that? The short answer is yes, there are. I don't know, with the exception of Google, and I'll explain that in just a minute, the other platforms would be a significant savings. So then you would have to weigh the cost of training to a new program and the anxiety that shift causes teachers. Those of you who are educators, I see Melissa shaking her head, and Tim, that's significant. And if that costs us an extra $5,000 to do Canvas to avoid that, it's money well spent. The other side of that is Google, as you all know, have a lot of free products. They also have a learning management system that is very good, but that's not free. But it is probably cheaper than Canvas. So we're looking into that whole piece. If we have to toggle to another program, probably Google is our next step because the price tag and Google is and I sound like I'm working for Google. It's a pretty user-friendly platform, and most people who have used it like it. So there's a lot out there, but I would love to avoid not another thing to throw on our teachers with the Virginia Literacy Act and math curriculum changes and then social studies and science coming right that then say, oh, and by the way, you got to learn how to deliver all this instruction on a new platform. We'd love to avoid that. We've been using Google since COVID, so our teachers are good at it and getting better. Canvas, I'm sorry, since COVID. So, when a teacher gets really good at something, we want them to continue to use it. So.
Is it possible that the state maybe that contract and they kind of mandate we switch from Canvas to whatever they pull that funding for?
Yeah, it's possible. When they went to Canvas originally, other schools were using all over the place. We were using Blackboard and some Google. There were some school divisions. There's about 7 or 8 of those learning management systems that kind of own the market, and so the state decided to move to Google and buy it. And of course, then school divisions are like, do we pay for the one we have or go ahead and train on this free package? They didn't force, I keep saying Google.
Yeah.
You are a Google.
I am a Google salesman. I do actually like Google a lot. But Canvas, when they provided it free, even school divisions that really liked their other package had a hard decision to make. So the state rarely says you must use it. They often just provide it, and then you're kind of crazy to not go that route. Now, we did have some resistance, and I'm looking around at the folks that were involved at the time when we decided to adopt this and abandon what we were using before. There was some angst with some employees who had been using this. But the good news for us is most of our teachers were not using a learning management system because it was relatively new with COVID. And so it would not be as challenging as now that every teacher is using Canvas on some level to toggle to a new platform.
The one thing that I would say is we should be really cautious, and this is not so much from a school board position, but from an operational, from an administration, we should be very cautious about switching platforms just to save what amounts to a few dollars, in other words, don't change the platform unless it becomes obsolete to or is running to obsolescence.
Right.
Or that it becomes cost prohibitive, just because the training of, you're not only training the teachers.
The parents and the kids.
And the students, so.
Very good point, and I would agree totally with that. Yeah.
There's always a pain when you do switch at some point. And there's free, like there's somebody that comes with you, oh, there's free, you can use Moodle. Well, unless you have somebody in the IT department like they had at NC State to encrypt your stuff and go beyond that open source software, then you leave yourself open to data breaches and everything else. And
Absolutely.
you don't, as a school system, you don't want to mess around with it. Might seem good, oh, free is good, unless you have the internal resources to make that free product better tailored to suit yourself.
Very good point.
It's costly on the
Especially at the numbers we're talking about here.
for $30,000.
Yeah, it's not like we're talking about $1 million, for 45 grand, I think. And so that was kind of our thinking, but again, I'm still hopeful that the state's going to come through on that.
Just curious, speaking of, as I'm listening, you clearly know a lot more about it. Support-wise, is that 45,000 if we got, what we're getting now from the state, how does that work as far as you need support, for whatever reason, you've got to update it, whatever they do to the platform, is that?
Yeah, it's included
or
generally when the
Okay.
state buys a package like that. And there's a lot of examples. We use PowerSchool, for example. Now, the state of Virginia doesn't buy PowerSchool for everybody, but a lot of states do. North Carolina, for example, uses PowerSchool. And it's interesting, we're talking about that. We just experienced a major breach, which happened all over the country. Actually, even Canada got wiped out with PowerSchool. They're big users of Power School. But a lot of whole states buy Power School as their system to do all of their data. And so they service multiple states as a whole. It's not uncommon for a state to get a really good deal on those things, but they almost always come with a package of service and maintenance and training and various
So
things.
it's not our folks, technology folks, trying to figure out.
Well, it is some of
It
both,
is
you know,
some-
it's
okay.
a lot of training now when it comes to technology, software especially, is a train-the-trainer kind of a thing. They'll train one or two folks and then those folks come back. Fortunate for us, we have ITRTs and they're all amazing. Don't tell them I said that. But they're good at what they do.
Sure.
And the main reason that they're good at what they do is they have the respect of their staff that they work with. They trust them. So when something comes down the pike, they learn how to use it and they train the folks that they work with every day how to use it. It's a model that really does work, and you know, our ITRTs are really, really good at it.
I'm going to ask another transportation question, and I first want to say it looks like the package you put together is an amazing improvement over what we have. I guess my general question is, how competitive do we feel like that is really still?
Good, that's a good question, and I'll give you a two-part answer. One part is the study itself, the comp study. If there was one place that was not comprehensive enough, it was in transportation. And you can weigh in here at any point, Andrew, if you want to, but we felt like what it recommended, unlike every other category of our employees, was very comprehensive and very spot on to put our folks in real competition, our salaries in real competition with the region. Bus drivers, not so much, simply because we do something that very few school divisions do, and that's we have a run rate versus an hourly rate. So when they looked at comparisons, they're looking at hour to hour. Well, our run rate and our hourly rate are obviously two different things. So what we did was we came on top of what they did with their work, which was not enough, and added a line item that adjusts the minimum to $5 something for minimum, and we also adjusted the run rates and the activity trip rates. So we adjusted every single category. Now, when those numbers are added in, we're going to be in good shape, competitive around this region for bus drivers. Now, with that said, we're probably not the only school board sitting around talking about bus drivers, because it's a need everywhere. Every school system everywhere I know is in need of bus drivers. And so if we're having that conversation, they're having that conversation, and they may not have done a comp study, but I would be surprised if that regional average is not a moving target. This puts us in really good shape to what we know they're paying now, because we have the comp study showing what's happening. But after this budget cycle, we're going to need to look at this again and again and again, because my guess is if any line item for compensation changes rapidly, it will be that one around the region.
I guess I'll just say it like a general statement. I think the biggest advantage we have over all the other school divisions is we only have to come up with funding for 16 drivers, right? So we can. I guess I'm wondering what it would take for us to have the highest paid bus drivers on the peninsula.
Well, this is going to be really close to that.
I would like to add two things into this, like, the run rate versus hourly rate. If you do apples to apples, just mince around these numbers, I would believe. We've got our average around $23,
Yeah.
a little bit over,
We
which
moved
is
it over.
highly competitive to
Very.
our immediate neighbors. And I think that, even with the run rate that we have, the jump annually that we're giving our drivers and our aides ranges anything from $3,000 to $6,000 for the year. And that's phenomenal. So that's our retention piece, because I'm just putting out there, my biggest worry is, yeah, we have the 12 fully trained drivers on staff right now, but will we lose those over the summer, any of them, to retirement, to, other divisions. So that piece
Yeah.
alone, I think, is going to keep us solid. Then adding the 3% increase with the $3 on the runs, and then up in summer school, I think this package, obviously we all want to do more, but I think this is enough well-rounded approach that is giving them joy to stay here. And also, if you're new, coming in at 1832 as their minimum run rate, that makes us, I have a tool now I can recruit with. So,
And the run is 40 minutes versus an hour.
Yeah,
which
that's
is-
what we did when I saw the comp study. It was very obvious it was hours versus runs, so went through the whole calculation of converting it and all that, so that we would be competitive with the regional.
So let's distill it outside of runs or hours, where were we and where are we going from, say, average yearly gross compensation? I think that's
We're going
probably.
to be at the top in the region with this pay plan for bus drivers. Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but like, we're bottom rung right now, like
Right.
currently. If we go to this proposed 100%, that 23 is compared to 20, to 21, to our immediate surrounding neighbors in the region. So we're talking averages, not high, their high end may be way higher, but it definitely puts us.
So let me ask it a different way. So if you were to turn around and look at what one of our bus drivers would make on an average basis over the course of the year, assuming that they turn around, not only do, 180 days worth of runs, they also are doing athletic events, they're doing, summer school, all that jazz. What is their gross?
Like annual salary.
What would their gross?
We have numbers that we could give you for, without those extra things, because we don't account, we just say for the 8 runs, which is the 4 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, that would go, and I don't have them in front of me, I don't know if Tracy's looking at them, but right now, that's that $3,000 to $6,000 we're going to add to that. So, now we're dipping into the, the 30s, the 35s maybe. 29 would be a good number, and I think I can remember 1,000 a year for that type of position, which is, it seems like, well, that's not a lot, but I mean, as far as the bus drivers around the region are concerned, we really took one neighbor, I won't name the division, and that was kind of like our measuring stick, because, that's who we don't want to lose them to. And we were toe-to-toe with that division.
And that 29 that you're bouncing around, that's just for
Running
just
runs.
straight runs.
Not the double, yeah, they don't, yeah.
Yep.
That's
And it's
what they're
important,
making.
and I think it's important to look at how the trip thing happens too, because that's just supplemental work that they choose. There's no requirement to do activities. Some bus drivers don't do any activities. Some like to do a lot of activities. And so if drivers are doing on the regular activities, they're making more money, guaranteed. Because even if they're doing an activity in placement of a regular run, their activity pay will be significantly higher than their regular run rate. And now our regular run rates, in comparison, are competitive.
We also talked about, like, when we raised those field trip, like athletics and just any type of field trip pay, we looked at that $20.50 for just a 2-hour or less travel time. And we looked and seen how many of those employees would be above or below, and I think there was only 2 that would be above that 2050 number, and we were, thinking, should we propose, for that particular, just to take their run rate, to give them a little bit of incentive not to lose that money, since it's just so few that are not above that.
That makes sense.
That was the break.
So,
Just curious if something may be food for thought or to consider, but I was saying Mike's idea about putting the comp study itself policy, I think, is good. Since this seems to be kind of an outlier, I guess, better term, is that something maybe we too want to consider adding in there, that if we do this every 3, 4, whatever years, and we get the same comp study and they're still not it's based on the hourly rate, is that something we want to say, hey, look at this, this time of the year also look at, bus, break it out? Or is it something even the management advisory group folks could change for the next go-round so that you have a more apples to apples?
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that, and we'll work on some policy stuff. We have to be careful. It's never prudent to put anything financial in policy because we don't have taxing authority. So ultimately, anything we get is a gift, is another way to look at it. So if we can't control our revenue, we have to ask for it, then we can't create a policy for future boards to be married to something that requires revenue. So all we can do is say we'll draft the language in the policy that puts future boards on notice that every 5 years there be, and we'll have to use language like consideration for, because there's a should, because this costs $30,000 now, it might be $50,000 5 years from now, and so we can't really prescribe cost to future boards. So we have to be a little bit careful about that, but we'll wordsmith it and certainly have our attorneys look at it and make sure we're not building ourselves in a box that we can't. But we could put language in there about to focus on all pay grades, looking at, we could put language so that we make sure they don't leave out groups of employees. And in Poquoson, because we have only 300 employees, we should be very, and a lot of those employees are singletons. There's just one or two people in that doing that job. And as Chris said, we're talking about 16 bus drivers. You can be intentional about that group in a very individualized way. So we'll build language around that.
That's what I was thinking.
Good point.
One other quick comment, I guess, again, when you and I met, talked about the study, and I had questions to try to understand and clarify some things, but as I understood it from you, the other part of this is, despite where somebody falls in the scales and the steps with the increase, or nobody loses money.
Correct.
Right?
That's
So
correct.
I just wanted to
That's
be
correct.
clear. Yeah, I think
and there were,
if they're higher,
Yep.
they're
There
there
were a
until
few,
the next.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's a very good point. And this study, and with every study I've been involved in, there always are some outliers. And part of the outliers is to find out that they're outliers. That's one thing you need to know, because you don't always know that. And this shows us in a very concrete way where they compare with their counterparts around the region. Now, what's complicated a bit with a few of our employees is they are unicorns. I joke all the time that everybody here wears a lot of hats. We say that a lot. So, for example, Andrew's position, we'll just use him as the operations guy. I don't know of another school division that has one person who's in charge of school nutrition, building and maintenance, and transportation, and HR. Now that's four, in most school divisions, that's 4 separate jobs. And yeah, we're small and there's smaller numbers of people, but the same reports in every category, the same work has to happen. So it's a comprehensive job. So where do you then compare that job in a study? So there's some anomalies here, and I only use that as an example. We did find 3 or 4 that were, the study said their rate should be decreased. Well, we're not going to, I love this job. I don't want to lose it. That would be a good way to do that, start reducing people's salaries. So as much as it only happened with 3 or 4 folks, we're going to leave those salaries the same, but they will not get an increase based on the study. Now, they'll get the 3% across the board because every employee gets that, and we've done that consistently with every position across the board. When the state says we're going to give you X for salary increase, we afford that to every employee.
That'll only be for this year, right? That they
This
want.
year, yeah.
Then they'll pick up their steps the
Yes,
following year.
absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah, I just I knew we had talked about it, there was a small number, but I just thought that was kind of.
Yeah, it's important to note that nobody will lose money.
Nobody's going to be
That's right.
decreased by
Exactly.
the result of it.
Yep.
One final question, I know some of our, I guess, security officers are grant funded. Where do they fall into this salary study and future budgets and?
That's a good question.
It's funny because they just released the grant for this coming year today, which is due in March. But, it's a local match, Tracy, as far as what we
Yes, it's a
fund
25%.
plus what the grant brings in. It's a 4-year cycle for the SSOs. I think we're on year 2. This will be year 3 coming in. So that will be adjusted accordingly. Now we have 4, full-time with us. It'll look a little more money.
And just to add some clarification to that as well, when we got the grant, part of the grant gave us ranges, minimum to maximum, that were statewide comparisons that were part of the grant proposal. In other words, if you got your grant, you had to agree to pay within this pay range, which was already adjusted kind of for a statewide model for SSOs. Am I right about that? You can't, in other words, lowball an employee in this and pay them out of that grant because it had a minimum and a maximum, as I recall, when we applied. So I think we're in good range for being competitive for those positions. And fortunate for us, we have all of our SSOs except one. Oh, that's right, one was not. 3 of the 4 are retired Poquoson police officers.
I just know a lot of grants, they run your course and they want to have the locality be able to fund those going forward. It's more like seed funding rather than you need to do that.
Well,
so.
this grant is you can reapply year after year after year, and I know it's very similar to the language that I remember reading in the school resource officer grants that actually the city gets. Police department applies for those grants and they get partial funding for those employees. They actually are employees of the police department loaned to us, but they are partially funded their salaries through a grant from DCJS. I'm guessing it's the same body. So the language is similar. It has a renewable, and I think those grants have been renewable for 15 years. So I'm not thinking that's going to run out, especially in the current climate with what's going on in the world. I think they're going to be very popular grants moving forward.
You make a good point, Tim, because I remember back in the 90s, they had the COPS grant where they were trying to, federal government was putting money into localities to hire more police officers. But if I recall correctly, that did run out, and then
ran its course.
You've got, okay, I hired 5 officers under this, and now it's not going to continue beyond this administration or however it worked.
Right.
And then the locality had to look at picking up. It kind of gave them a good start, I guess, but yeah. They ended up paying
That's a
for
good
the
point.
officers.
And looking forward, when we start to see, and we do this with all grants, especially if grants have personnel attached, we try to stay ahead of that. Is this renewable? Can we get that? And if not, then we have to start looking at rolling it into our budget. If it's a program we want to keep, and certainly SSOs are, we're very pleased to have this program. Well, we're getting to the end, and again, this is the end of this, but the beginning of the process. So please feel free to call me, as I always say.
We're gonna sign up sheets. We'll be going around, to schedule meetings that fit with your individual calendars, and we'll try and keep it to 1 to 2 or 3. We can't have more than 3. So, and meet with Artie as many times as you feel is necessary. So the objective being that, we've gotten all of our questions answered by the March meeting. And if you need to talk amongst yourselves, that's totally fine, like we always do.
Small groups.
Small groups.
Really small groups.
Don't send group emails. So, yeah.
Well, thanks again for everybody. It's been a good meeting and a lot of information, and thank you again, Tracy, for
Do we need
all this
to
work.
adjourn this?
Ashley
Yep.
and Andrew.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? Can I get a second? All ayes? All right, 8:36. So,
Thank you.
Dr. Bartlett
So very
and
much. I can't even imagine putting this together.